Stalin himself was in theory liable to execution since his son, Yakov Zhugashvili, had recently been captured. I don't think Stalin was unduly worried. He simply admired Zhukov for his pitiless determination. But even Zhukov, who'd sent virtually unarmed militia to their certain death against German panzer divisions in 1941, had no idea of the most cynical sacrifice of all in November 1942, which was carried out in his name. While Operation Uranus, the great plan to encircle Paulus's Sixth Army at Stalingrad, was being prepared, another offensive, a huge diversion, was taking place further north on the Kalinin and Western fronts against the German Ninth Army of Army Group Center. And this was called Operation Mars, and was the subject of a book by the late David Glantz. Glantz, unable to access the key documents, became utterly convinced that Mars was a genuine operation like Uranus at Stalingrad. But in fact, the main objective of Mars was to ensure that not a single German division could be moved from the central part of the front to the southern part. Although Zhukov was responsible for supervising this operation as Stavka representative, he devoted far more time to planning Uranus than to planning Mars. But in the view of Russian military historians who've gone into the matter in great detail, the factor which demonstrated conclusively that Mars was a diversion and not, as Glantz argued, a co-equal operation, was the allocation of artillery ammunition. The 6 armies sent into battle as a diversion had virtually no artillery support, while the Stalingrad operation received plenty. This imbalance suggests a staggering disregard for human life on the part of Stalin. Yet, according to General Pavel Sudoplatov of the NKVD, the ruthlessness went far further. He described how details of Operation Mars were deliberately passed in advance to the Germans, to the enemy. The NKVD and GRU military intelligence had prepared what was called Operation Monastery, an infiltration of the German Abwehr. Alexander Demyanov, the grandson of the leader of the Kuban Cossacks, had been instructed by the NKVD to allow himself to be recruited by German military intelligence. Since Demyanov's family was well known in white émigré circles abroad, the Germans had already identified him during the Soviet-Nazi pact as a possible agent for them. So following his NKVD orders, Demyanov defected across the lines, so-called defected, across the lines on skis during the chaos of the Soviet counterattack around Moscow in December 1941. And then the German intelligence chief, Reinhard Gehlen, welcomed Demyanov with open arms. Gehlen trusted him completely and gave him the codename Max. He claimed that Demyanov was his best agent and network organizer, but the whole underground organization, supposedly of anti-communist sympathizers, which Max ran, was entirely controlled by the NKVD. And in February 1942, the Germans dropped Max, or Demyanov, by parachute back behind Red Army lines, and he soon began to radio plausible but inaccurate intelligence provided by his NKVD controllers. In early November 1942, preparations were well advanced for Operation Uranus around Stalingrad, as well as the diversionary attack of Operation Mars near Rzhev. And Max, or Demyanov, was now instructed by his Soviet controllers to give the Germans details of Mars. The disinformation planted through Alexander, wrote General Sudoplatov, was kept secret even from Marshal Zhukov, and was handed to me personally by General Fedor Fedotovich Kuznetsov of GRU in a sealed envelope. Zhukov, not knowing that this disinformation game was being played at his expense, paid a heavy price in the loss of thousands of men under his command. This was an understatement. This particular diversion cost the Red Army 215,674 casualties, just about the same as the total Allied casualties for D-Day and the whole of the Battle of the Normandy. It was one of the most heartless sacrifices known in the history of war.